Welcome. This is DA Sports. I'm your host, DASASIE. Thank you. This is episode number 51. Now, today's episode is going to be a little short. As you can see, I am wearing my Atlanta Braves gear with the Braves hat in the back because obviously MLB season just kicked off this week. But this entire episode is not going to be about baseball. It is going to be about March Madness. We are going to recap the first week of March Madness, and then I'm going to get into my predictions for the second week of March Madness. I am aware that the time of the recording and release, I did miss the games from yesterday. But thankfully for me, my predictions that I had already made previously to writing this episode are still alive as of right now. We'll see after tonight's game if that's the same, but these are my predictions going into this weekend, even before yesterday's game. I just happen to be so far okay with my predictions. But without further ado, let's get into it. So to start with March Madness Week 1, we got to do a quick recap of everything that happened during the first week. Now this recap is going to encompass both the men's and the women's tournament, okay? So, for starters, one of the biggest things in this year's March Madness is the dominance of all of the top seeds. One of the things that's always drawn in views for, I would say, like casual fans to March Madness is the thrill of the upset, the thrill of the Cinderella story of the 14 seed team that knocks off their first round opponent and gets it to the Sweet 16 and anything is possible, and they just rally a whole area that really thought they had no chance of making it. Well, this year, that's definitely not the case. Going into week 2, the only non-top seeds on each side, on the men's side, there was 2 6 seeds, 1 5th seed, and 1 10th seed. Now, as I mentioned, this episode is being recorded after the Thursday night game, so we already know that 10th seed lost last night, even though they really should have won. So it goes to further show you just how much we've had dominance from the favorite seeds. And then even in the women's bracket, there's only 3 5 seeds that advanced. Those are the only ones that weren't the favorite team in all of their matchups to make it. Like ideally, if all the favorites won, the only seeds that would be in the Sweet 16 are either 1, 2, 3, and 4. Well, in the women's seeds, it's basically all that with the exception of 3 5 seeds. And in the men's bracket, it was all of that except for 2 6s, 1 5, and 1 10. So combined, you're talking about 7 teams total. 7 teams total out of 32 total teams that were not a top 4 seed going into March Madness. So definitely speaks to everything being top heavy. Now there's a lot of speculation as to the reason why this is. Most people are contributing this to NIL because so many players are staying longer in the NCAA because they can get paid and because everybody has such an easy availability to transfer from one school to the other. It's basically like the top schools continue to just stack top talent, and those schools that you would get in like the mid-majors who would have like maybe 1 star and then do good in a tournament and get somebody else to come join them, and then they end up building a roster, and by their senior year, you're like, oh my gosh, this team is actually really good. They came out of nowhere, seemingly. Those don't exist because that 1 star that has a great season on a mid-major now gets plucked from that team by a Power 5 school the following season, and that other school just falls back down to the bottom. I think that is part of it. Now, on the women's side, I think it's a little different. On the women's side, the main reason is because it's always been like that. To be frank, there just aren't enough top-tier women basketball players to spread it out evenly across, the 200 to 300 schools on the women's side, D1 schools. So I know on the men's side it's like 300 and I think 30 something or whatever. I don't know if it's exactly the same on the women's side, but even let's say it's 250. There's not, you know, 2,000 great women's basketball players in college right now. So there's a huge disparity, which is why, especially in the first round, you see such a huge disparity in the scoring in games and stuff like that. So on the women's side, I think it's just a product of depth of talent overall. But on the men's side, I do think it has a lot to do with the transfer portal, and NIL. Now, the other thing that I'm going to recap for the first weekend is unfortunately the worst news of the first weekend, and that was the injury to Juju Watkins. For those that don't know or don't follow college basketball, Juju Watkins is the best college women's basketball player there is. I mean, honestly, I've said this from after her, like, middle of her freshman year. She is the best basketball player at her age that I've ever seen in terms of all around skill set. And that goes for men and women's. Like, that includes LeBron, who was playing in the NBA at the same age that she is. In terms of, it goes for Kareem too. Like, in terms of having every aspect of skill, being able to have great ball handling skills, great passing skills, great mid-range, step back, three-pointers, free throws, and on top of that, be an elite defender. I've never seen a basketball player have a full complement of top-tier skill set at 19 years old. And unfortunately, even though her team was ranked number one, she got injured. She tore her ACL. She's out, obviously, for the rest of the tournament, and it's going to bleed into next season. So that sucks because, she had a great run last year in her freshman year, and the way the brackets lined up, it looked like there was going to be a chance for a rematch between them and UConn. UConn knocked them out last year in the Elite Eight. So unfortunately, we won't really get to see her greatness on display. To be honest, she definitely is the face of women's college basketball the same way that Caitlin Clark was last year. So to see the face of the league go out is troubling. I still think we are going to get some good matchups, especially as we get down to the Elite Eight in the women's field, but it is unfortunate that she got hurt. Okay, so now moving on from last week, we're going to jump straight into my predictions for this weekend. So for this weekend, obviously there's 2 days for the Sweet 16 and then 2 days for the Elite Eight. So I'm just going to give you my Final Four predictions on the men's and the women's side based on who's going into the Sweet 16. So to start on the women's side, my Final Four predictions is I'm picking UCLA to make it to the Final Four and face off against UConn, which I think that'll be a great battle. UCLA has been a top team majority of the season. They've got multiple stars, and then you have UConn, who is like the brand name of women's college basketball, the most dominant women's college basketball franchise there is, and they now have what most people consider the best college basketball player left in the tournament with Paige Beckers. So that'll be a great matchup between those two storied schools in the sport of basketball in itself. So that'll be a great matchup. Those are the first two I'm picking for the Final Four on the women's side. And then on the other side, I'm going with South Carolina versus Notre Dame. Now, South Carolina has been the most recent powerhouse with them dominating. They are the defending champs, and they're looking to repeat. And considering the fact that they lost so much talent to the WNBA last year, it's a testament to Dawn Staley's ability to not only recruit, but to coach them up and put players in position. She's also dealt with injuries again this year, the same way she did last year. And still, South Carolina is one of the favorites to make it, and that's part of the reason why I have them making it to the Final Four. And then Notre Dame is a dark horse. They are not one of the number one seeds, but I just love the chemistry of their guard play. I think Hannah Hidalgo is an excellent player. I mean, it's crazy to think about Hidalgo and Juju when they finally leave college and go to the WNBA. Like, their whole class is full of just ballers. So it'll be interesting to see going forward. I do think that Notre Dame's going to be able to push themselves to a couple of upsets and make it into the Final Four to challenge South Carolina in that Final Four matchup. Now on the men's side, I have one outstanding upset that I have making it to the Final Four. And the first matchup, and the first team I'm going to mention that I have making it to the Final Four is Ole Miss. Now, Ole Miss is not favored to win tonight. And if they did win tonight, they wouldn't be favored to win on, what would that be, Sunday. But I think that they can pull off the upset against Michigan State, and I think they can pull off the upset against whoever they play next. If they lost to Michigan State, would I be surprised? No. But I'm going a little bit off the rails here. I think that Ole Miss has been tested because they played in the toughest conference in the entire league this year, the SEC, and that fact is going to be showed in all of my predictions for the men's Final Four. But I am predicting that Ole Miss is going to be a team to make it to the Final Four, and I think they're going to be going up against Florida. Now, Florida was the number one seed. Florida is also the team that most, I would say, analysts are predicting is going to win it all, which I don't fault anybody for thinking that. I think they probably have the most depth and well-rounded team there is, so that'll be an interesting matchup. Obviously, another SEC battle in the Final Four, which would be great. And then the last two Final Four participants that I'm picking on the men's side is, to start, is going to be another SEC team. I'm going with Alabama. I think Alabama is just so explosive, evident by the amount of threes that they just hit last night. Now, granted, like I said, these predictions were done before yesterday's game, but it rang true, no pun intended, in the way they were able to score. And I think that scoring ability is going to cause problems for pretty much everybody that they play. I think that'll carry them forward to win their Elite Eight game also, and they will make it to the Final Four. And the team I think they're going to play is going to be the only team out of the Final Four that I'm picking that's not coming out of the SEC. I'm going with Houston. Houston obviously hasn't played the same level of competition that all of these SEC teams that I picked have in terms of having that depth in their own conference, but I think that Houston plays great overall team. They play complementary school of basketball where their whole team gets involved, and I think that's going to be enough to continue to carry them through the wins and make it all the way to the Final Four, where they will match up against Alabama. So, just to recap, on the women's side, my Final Four is UCLA, UConn, South Carolina, Notre Dame. And then on the men's side, I'm going with Ole Miss, Florida, Alabama, and Houston. So that's it. And that's it for this week's episode. I want to thank you all for tuning in. Please make sure you like and subscribe and share wherever possible. And I look forward to seeing you in the next episode. Peace.